So we like to use a guided meditation to help our mind be clearer. The practice of meditation is a process of tuning in. The process of meditation is the practice of tuning in. So as you hear this voice, you're tuning into what I'm saying. When you're tuned in, you can understand the attitude and meaning behind the words. When you practice meditation, you listen to your environment. You become sensitive to your experience. At the same time, there can be lots of internal activity, noise, and busyness. Often we get caught up with inner preoccupations. In meditation practice, we notice this. When tuning into our inner environment, we have moments of self-awareness, noticing ourself that is aware. Good meditation practice is continuously tuning in to this awareness. Anything can be used to support the natural process of tuning in to awareness. We're using our physical experiences as a means of noticing the act of awareness. So we're looking at our natural experiences to notice ourselves being aware. So by following my words, and by being aware of their meaning, you can be aware that you are aware. By looking at the clouds, the sky behind, or the inside of your eyelids when your eyes are closed, you're seeing. Notice you are aware that you are seeing, that you are aware of being aware. Listening to the sounds of nature, music, random noise, tinnitus whistle, or sound of silence. Notice you are aware of what you're hearing. Paying attention to the movement of air into and out of the lungs, breathing. Notice the experience. Notice you are aware of it. Notice you're aware of your awareness. Or feeling the weight of our body, the contact points has with chair or bed. Notice your sensations and be aware of them. These sensations, all of them, are in the present. So by paying attention to them, we're in the present. And the future and past are always trying to catch us. We need to return to the present, and we can use experiences in the present to return to it. Like the sensation of breathing right now. Often we have reactions, emotions, and thoughts. Their energy captivates us, even if we want different. We become aware of that too and choose to notice ourselves being aware. There's something deeply peaceful about self-awareness. In the act of awareness, we experience unconditional calmness, acceptance, and the knowledge that we are alive. We'll just pause for a minute's silent meditation. So just notice your experience, whatever it is. You can pick one or focus on one, that first one that you feel, and just keep bringing your attention back to that experience in the present. So notice yourself in the present. Thank you very much for coming today. John, Amy, Sherry, and we have, sorry, can you tell me your name again? CJ, or you can't I'll type it. Can you tell me how to write it, and I'll type it in the chat. Oh wait, no, I've muted you. Sanjay. Thank you, Sanjay. Sanjay. If it's possible that later, don't worry about it. But if you can change your initials from CDP to Sanjay, it's just easier for everybody. But no worries about that. So we're just taking a few seconds. And in this course, in this activity, we are practicing to take our time and to be patient. If we're rushing inside ourselves, then we're really under pressure from the past or the future, to solve the suffering of the past or avoid the suffering of the future, something like that. Because once we're not driven by the past or future, then what's the point in being in a rush? And there's interesting things happen when we start to explore what life is like when we're not in a rush. We're not under that kind of internal pressure to change things. And we jump off that, the wheel, the wheel that the mouse is on and runs around and just never stops. When we jump off our wheel, and really we usually have a lot of momentum, so it takes a while to jump off it, or we kind of jump off and then we jump back on it again. Is when we get off it, we're not caught up in that busyness. We're really in a different place where we can notice things, where we can be aware. and most importantly for us, where we can make really good choices to heal, choices that will support our healing process, choices which are the direct expression of what healing means to us in our lives today. Because when we're on that wheel, spinning around like the mouse who can't get off, caught up in it, we're in a state, and that state isn't the healing state. Well, we know this, we all know this. And at the same time, we also know that healing exists inside of us. We know that from the very basic biology of what happens in our lungs and the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So it doesn't matter that if we can't even move our eyelids or anything at all, we still have healing taking place inside ourselves. But very often the state of mind in which we've lived our lives and which we know is not a healing state of mind. The healing state of mind is different. It's not caught up with the objectives that the mouse on the wheel trying to achieve whatever is. The healing state of mind is different. And whilst we can see it in the biology of our body, it can be harder to see in our mind and emotions. But really, our emotions are trying to create a safe environment for us. And we may have developed emotional habits to create a safe environment, but those habits might not actually be creating one, if you understand what I mean. The habits that we learned as a child, for instance, without being conscious, sometimes we use those, or often we use those same emotional habits as adults. And we do that because those habits that built up in us as children, the hurt involved in those habits, those emotional habits or patterns, that hurt has not yet been resolved. So we still get caught up in those patterns. You might think that's not really all that relevant, but in fact it is. Because those patterns of behavior, those old patterns of behavior, which have some trauma in them, they're ingrained into our brains. So it's not just about the past, it's about the present. And how the past has shaped the present, and our experience have shaped our brains and our emotional behavior. So in order to heal, it's something that we have to find a healthy way of engaging in. We can't solve, I think it's fair to say that we can't solve all our emotional and mental challenges and problems. And I don't even suggest that we should try to solve it all, because to think in terms of healing everything, it's a huge objective, and that huge objective has a lot of weight to it. Then it's kind of heavy, right? To heal everything in my life, not just heal myself of ALS, but heal all these emotions and all this other stuff as well. It's a huge thing. And if we take on that approach, then we go along, get ourselves caught up in the future where we'll be healed, and we're expecting that to happen and driving towards that. But what happens is that is such a demanding expectation is that it knocks us out of our healing path. because the healing bath has a lot more to do with being present and healing in this moment in time. And the more that moments we do that in, the more we're actually healing ourselves. So we don't need to be focused on the big objective. We already know what that is. That there's, that's very clear. And we can't simply do it. There's not one thing that we can do, and that's it. It's doing it. We need to practice our approach of healing again and again every single day. And that's our healing practice then. And if we're doing that, then we're changing. We're changing ourselves inside. And we're giving ourselves our body the support that we can from emotional, mental, spiritual perspectives. We're giving our body the best support that we can for our body to heal. And that's what we have that possibility of doing. It's much harder to look inside a cell and tell a particular cell, right, the glutamate excitology in my cell is going to just calm down and the function of cell is going to be better because I really want it to. Just imposing our wants on our body, it doesn't really work. But does that mean that we shouldn't have any relationship with our body at all? No, but it doesn't. But we need to come at the relationship with our body from a different perspective. If somebody had the solution for ALS, that would be fine. We could just do it, do those things, and that would be it. But that doesn't really exist to us. So we're exploring a different approach. And in a way, it's a very personal approach because it's healing within us. And in order to heal within us, our emotions, our mind, we have to do internal things. So there's my focus really, that I've been meditating since 18, so that's, 35 years or something. Now my focus is on healing. And healing and meditation overlap a huge amount. They're not the exact same. And even healing meditation is slightly different from meditation. There's a slightly different emphasis in it. But any person who is really practicing meditation, and I don't mean just sitting there and pretending they're meditating or thinking about how they can do what, making plans, but is really meditating, is becoming aware of themselves and what's happening inside, becoming aware of their states of mind and emotion. When we become aware of that, we're in that place of transformation. We're not just in the place where we want to fix it. Oh, this is a bad emotion. This is a bad thought. I shouldn't have it. These are, and we have that's a whole other bunch of thoughts and feelings. And all of it has to be dealt with. All of that stuff has to be dealt with to a greater or lesser extent in the healing process of meditation. We encounter all of these things again and again, and we learn how to deal with them, how to face them. It's not that anger is wrong or sadness is wrong or being judgmental is wrong. We don't need to think about right or wrong in that sense. What we do need is to have a clear sense of what healing means to us. What's most important for our healing process, our strongest motivation. What does healing mean to us? Because it's more than just not having ALS or not being limited by ALS. There's something more about that. It's more personal and powerful. And we develop methodology then for when we get stuck in states of mind, like anger or sadness or anxiety or whatever. And when we look at them, we see that all of these states of mind or states of emotion, all of them are actually trying to help us. Even anger, for instance, or which rage is the extreme version of. But let's take anger because it's easier to work with as an example. If we're feeling angry, it's because we're trying to have things a certain way, and they're not that way. And what we've learned, or the way our personality works, the reason doesn't matter actually, is we've learned to have an angry response to give us energy to change that situation to make it the way we want. And so, and it's the same with anxiety. Anxiety, we get anxious about a situation, and obviously we've all experienced anxiety because we're unsure, we're uncertain. So the feeling of anxiety is actually giving us energy to become certain, to become sure. So when you start to think about emotions in this way, then they're not simply negative things, or they don't deserve the criticism that they get. And in fact, our energy for life is very emotional. So making friends with our emotions and overcoming our overcoming our emotional boundaries or our patterns, overcoming our emotional patterns gives us more energy to heal. So the person who is focusing on healing by doing small things really practices the healing process. The person who's focused on the big healing achievement is always comparing themselves with something that they haven't succeeded in doing. But if your healing step is something that is healing, and you can do it. So if a healing step, and one of my favorite ones, but not my only one, is relaxed breathing. I think it's essential. I don't think there's any skipping over relaxed breathing. I think if we're going to heal, it's something that we have to develop over time because it's so fundamental to supporting our whole body in a better state. So if we practice one simple healing breath, and in fact, I've even shortened it. I've managed to see it even smaller, that when we breathe out, we just let go when we're breathing out. We don't even have to concentrate on the breathing in part. But when we breathe out and we let go, and we'll feel a certain level of stress in our body, or maybe in our emotions or mind, we feel a certain level of stress comes down. And that can be very, very small. The size of it doesn't matter. What matters is that as we breathe out, we can feel ourselves being a little bit more relaxed than we were a moment before. And that's it. That's enough. That's what I want you to notice as because it's a basic reference that we can find all the time because we're always breathing. So we can always notice the body relaxing when we've breathed out, because that's what's actually happening. And so we're connecting with our body in a very physiological way. We're making a choice to be healthier by relaxing, by reducing stress. We're using the body's natural rhythm. And if it doesn't matter if you're having oxygen fed into you, you can still feel the body relaxes after the air is out. And that's the key thing. So we start with this really, really small place, really small, the smallest action that we can experience in a way. So we start with this really small place. And in fact, we don't leave it. We do grow. We do grow with it. But it's still, it's still possibly the meditation that I use the most, unless I'm really focused on practicing something else. But if I'm going to turn to a meditation in a moment, it'll usually be my breath, and it starts with just noticing myself breathing out. So we then have an exercise where we're doing something which is healthy for ourselves. So we've got all our brain is firing off, going, yeah, I'm doing this. It's successful. So we're successfully taking steps to heal. And that's something that we learn to do and practice doing again and again, because the more we do it, the more we actually get into that healing state. And if we do it for long enough, we really notice our mind being different too, because the practice has changed things. And this whole process, the process of healing, is a process of change. And we change ourselves. And hopefully the people who care about us can help us journey with our healing changes. So I've kind of given an introduction, really, to what we're doing. It's always an introduction reminder. Let me just check the time. It's 1:45. I didn't check with any of you initially, and you too, Sanjay, Amy, Sherry, John. Just if you have any questions, or if there's anything that you want to ask about or talk about. And if it's something practical, I don't mind doing practical questions here either, but I keep my response to the practical questions shorter, usually anyway. Depends a little bit. We'll do that right now then. We're describing what meditation, how to do meditation. It's good to focus on what meditation is. And even that, there's a variety of different meanings on. In English, it comes from the Greek or Latin, meditare, which means to join. And so meditation has this sense of joining together, of becoming bigger, not physically, but in our perspective, our scope of understanding becomes bigger. So it's this sense of joining together, or becoming one, I think, is one of the other Latin meanings of it. In Buddhist culture, they tend to use the word, there's a different word that they use in Buddhist tradition, and it means more mental culture. So, and then different meditations are broken up into different perspectives. You'd have religious meditations or contemplative meditations. There's a whole category of stuff there. And I don't really go into all that differentiation. What I do go into is the actual practice themselves. So usually, or very often at least, the people practice meditation because they want to quiet the mind down. That's very frequent. Some people do it just because they find it interesting. Or you might have a different reason that you've been told that it will help you with a problem in your life. And yes, so it's good to know your reason for meditating. What is it? And knowing that means that you know what your concept, what's in your mind when you approach meditation, that you want to achieve something, or you want to experience something, or you want to practice something, because that's what you know to be the supporting part for you. But all meditation comes to the present. And if our mind is in the present, we're meditating. If we're aware in the present, we're meditating. So meditating is something, from one perspective, is incredibly simple. If we're in the present, that's it. We're actually meditating just by being in the present. Maybe it doesn't look like it outside, because we could be doing some kind of activity and meditating at the same time. Recently, I was talking about therapeutic writing, because that's a really good way of being in the present and expressing thoughts at the same time. But that's a meditation, that is. That's why I think it's so suitable. Meditating or reflecting in that exercise, therapeutic writing, you're reflecting what's on your mind onto paper. So you're becoming conscious of it, becoming into the present of your mind. So it's a type of meditation. So one question you can ask yourself is, what brings me into the present? Danger is usually one of the things that brings us into the present. Loud sounds, things like that. But we want to be in the present in a way which is not filled with emotions of fear and shock, So we're kind of looking for a different route to be present, which isn't about being threatened. And when we feel good, we tend not to stay in the present, because we sort of don't need to. When we're safe and protected, we don't really need to stay in the present so much, because it's okay. So we tend to wander off then into the past or future. Or we have very difficult circumstances or emotions or thoughts. And that when we try to come into the present, we feel and experience those things more. So they present a whole bunch of problems. And that can be really, really challenging. The method does work, though, and it takes time to build up the practice of understanding the method, the practice of the method. It takes time. So in this pause, if you notice, sometimes I'm just pausing. It's not really deliberate. It's just, I notice it too. But when there's a pause, there's also space as well. And so that's what happens when our mind meditates enough. We end up having more space in our mind. And we have more space in our mind, we're really being able to, well, first of all, when we have more space in our mind is in a healthier state. We've already satisfied healing objectives. Our mind is already in a healthier state. So when our mind is silent, we can be more receptive, we can be much clearer, can be much calmer. And I think one of the things that I usually do is to give people a method to become calmer. And we actually did that earlier with the breathing. So, Sanjay, you're asking about how to practice meditation. In fact, I'm talking about it all the time. But it takes a while to actually understand that, oh, this is it. It's not something else, something alternative. Meditation or being in the present is completely normal. We just come from a culture where it's not anymore. So it's not as much in our background and our habits. So we have to relearn this natural process, this natural aspect of ourselves. And that's why, very early on in this, I think I said one of the things that we need is patience. And we do. There's no fast way of doing all of this. If you're doing it very fast, then it's just superficial and there isn't any depth of change. So that the practice of meditation, to give you the two sides of it, is really letting go as your air breathes out. When you've done that a few times, if you notice yourself relaxing a few times doing that, then when you breathe the air in, you can imagine that you're breathing healing in, for instance. And next week, I'll do a full guided meditation on this. So we're going to spend, I think we've got a couple of minutes. So we'll just spend this last couple of minutes together, just practicing this. Letting go as we breathe out. And if there's a strong emotion there, frustration or anything at all, doesn't matter. So we just let go of that when we breathe out. We let go as we breathe out. And we just notice ourselves breathing in. We just feel that physical movement. There's no need, from a meditation point of view, to do more than this. This can be enough of a practice. This is meditation. But Sanjay, I introduce a lot of different meditation approaches because people are different. And we also need to learn to work in different ways as well and explore ourselves as we explore ourselves. That makes any sense. So we don't need to be concerned with, this state or that state, states of enlightenment, states of this, states of that. We really don't need to be concerned about that. I won't focus on it anyway. What I'm much more interested in doing is encouraging people to meditate in a simple, grounded way. That way, the meditation will be a healing experience and will help nurture your state of mind and state of body. So for that, it's easier to have a humbler approach rather than trying to get to some ecstatic state of mind, which, if you want to do is absolutely fine. But the healing state of mind is much more accessible than the ecstatic state. And just by practicing the simple breath of letting go and even just being aware as breath comes back in, that's enough, because you've got consciousness, your consciousness in your body in the present. And as you're letting go, you're actually doing emotional work with it as well. That's loads. That's it. I think that's it for me for today. If you have any questions or if anybody wants to say anything, and we're a little bit on the late side, so we'll do welcomes to Sanjay next week if you're all here next week. Thank you. You're welcome, Charles. Good to see you. I'm sorry about last week's class. The system collapsed or crashed or bugged out or whatever. So sorry about missing last week. It should be good for the summer now. So have a really good week. Thank you, Amy. You're in the dark tonight, Amy. I hope you're well. I hope everybody is well. And if you're having difficulty, This is really the simplest thing to start your response, to initiate the healthy response. Whether it's emotional or physical difficulty, it doesn't make any difference. You know, I stand up, and if I, unless I'm prepared, when I stand up, I immediately go into meditation when I stand up, because often I'll be dizzy. It happens a lot. So if I stand up, and as soon as if I notice that weakness, I'm straight into meditation, relaxing into my body as I'm not quite, but almost fainting. And I just stay there until my body's relaxed, the blood is flowing properly or whatever is going on, and then continue on. And it's absolutely fine. So that's the difference. But if I got stressed about that, it would be a very different thing. So you can really have this small practice as often as you can, many times throughout the day, if you can. Do it all day long if you can, and enjoy it. Enjoy it. It's really, really nice to do, and to feel that deeper space inside ourselves. You're welcome, Sherry. And that's it for today. Then I'll see you next week, I hope. Be well, be kind to yourselves and others if you can. Have a great week. And yeah, if there's anything you want to contact me about, Sanjay, you can do. No problem. Okay.
Yeah. That's the deal.
That's it. Have a great week now. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.